Welcome everybody back here at Veil of Sound. We're closing in on the end of May when this one is released. For certain reasons, we are recording this a lot earlier, but the important thing is, in a few days after this interview is released, you can finally listen to a new full-length record by this fine gentleman here and his partner. Together, they're Deafkids. I'm very happy to have Marian here on the show. So Marian, thanks for joining.
Hello, thanks for having us. Thanks for having me in case.
Yeah, in this case, only you. Of course, send all our love and greetings to Douglas when you talk to him again. The first thing that we always do here on the Veil of Sound is, as everybody knows, the pluck of the day. You and I will both pluck a band, an artist, a project that we think deserves more attention. Not, of course, none of which you are involved in. And I'll give you a moment to think while I want to pluck something Brazilian. Musically, a very different genre, but Papangu is a great band from Brazil. Their version of rock has amazed me for several years now, and I know that there is new music in the waiting. Maybe when this one is out, we already will know a little bit more. So, Marian, a band that you could pluck or would like to pluck?
I think just to stay on the Brazilian side of things, I think I could recommend a band from Brazil called Cicatriz da ZO. I can spell it if you want.
You could just write. Just later on, you just write the name into the chat, right, and I'll then copy it. What kind of music do they make?
It's this sort of mixture. As well, Papangu, they're good friends of the band, of the consortium that we have, like Test, Deafkids. We do a lot of stuff together. So Papangu, we did a lot of concerts together as well. We are in the kind of like the same space in a way, in a lot of ways, even though like the sound comes from different backgrounds in a way. Yeah. But Cicatriz da ZO, it's more or less the same in a way. Like we do stuff, we go along back, and they do this mixture of Brazilian funk, like funk carioca, like baile funk. I think it's the most common international name for it. But it's at the same time, it's very punk informed. We come from the same background. It has a lot of like contemporary electronica on it, like a lot of like glitchy sounds in a way. It's at the same time, it's very word based in a way, like very poetry based. In a very contemporary way as well. So I think it's a great mixture of something that's chaotic, yet it's very danceable, it's very inclusive in a way. Even though it's very lyric based, at the same time, it's very intuitive music. So I think a lot of people that dig Deafkids might see some similarities with it.
So if anybody wants to find out more, we'll have the link underneath this video to check it out. And it definitely sounds as if there are musical parallels between that band and yours. You said you've come from different backgrounds. That could already lead me to my icebreaker question in general. When listening to your music, and especially listening to the new record, Cicatriz do Futuro, I always have a feeling as if I'm listening to mental and musical anarchists.
Yeah,
is that something where you say, "Oh, you totally misgot us," or okay?
No, I think that would be fitting. I think, in a way, this is like the expansion pack in a way, like the unfolding of the sort of like the like the punk ethos that we come from, then that's the thing I've mentioned that is connected to Crizin in a way. But like Deafkids is on its core like a punk band, like but with more bells and whistles in a way. So I think that definitely reflects an approach to what we do.
And it's also very interesting to listen to a new record because we have to get that out of the way. But there has been a lineup change to Deafkids. You are now a duo. Could you lead us into, or could you tell us a little bit more of how that came to happen? That you are now two people instead of three.
I think that was a kind of a natural progression in a way. Like Marcelo now lives in Portugal, the former bassist, and I think this was a natural progress in the sense that he already wanted to do that, and we had from the pandemic years in a way, we had this our latest full length Metaprogramação was, it still followed a certain classic band format in a way, band lineup, like bass, guitar, drums with added percussions and so on. But we didn't have, for example, percussions live, like an expanded kit, for example, which I use nowadays. And when we were about to tour the US in 2020, a lot of things were already being added. So the percussions, we had like certain songs which were beat based, so we were playing on top of beats. Marcelo took most of the sampling duties in the sense of like triggering those samples with an SP by the time. But I think this already implemented a certain other possible format for us, which was the idea of playing on top of beats. So this was already something that was going on, but we didn't have like any recorded materials following this pattern, following this structure. And most of the stuff that came out since then was collaborative material. So the record with Pet Brick, the
Radka, Gum Takes,
exactly,
and Test Blaster.
The stuff we did, for example, the stuff we did for Gum Takes Tooth follows this pattern. Like we play on top of like an electronic D beat that we did, and then we play like percussions on top. The songs for Cyberpunk, they were recorded kind of concurrently with Metaprogramação, so they were still following that old pattern. But the second song that is in the soundtrack is as well a song that we play on top of beats. We play this song live sometimes. So this was a pattern that was emerging, a form of composing and playing live that was emerging. And when Marcelo chose to stay in Portugal, we were already in the process of realizing that the bass was more or less the most static instrument of the band in general, like the composition wise. The idea was that mostly the bass was the thing that kept like steady, that didn't change much. So the idea of playing live and having the bass being triggered electronically and being part of like the samples that we use was already like pretty I don't know, pretty developed. So when we decided to work on the ideas that we already had or the new ideas that we had, we already had the template to follow. So in a way, playing live with beats, whether it's like drums and percussions and guitar, or songs that we both play percussion, it already added a certain, in a way, I think it sounds even more live. Like playing on top of beats made us a band that sounds, or that feels even more live, even though we were playing on top of beats. So I think that was a natural progression.
So would you say that if we listen to the tracks on the Cyberpunk game, better said, then we can audibly hear that progression? Is that like the moment where you're like,
in a way, because there's two songs there, and one is it already has the template that we follow nowadays, and the other reflects that in the sense that there were a myriad of things that inform our music that began to emerge, or this was one of the first instances of it registered. So, for example, Selva Pulsatio, which is like the song that is present on the album soundtrack, on the soundtrack album. The other is only on the game.
Yeah.
But it already has a more daring approach to a lot of types of music that we not that we base ourselves on, but that really inform what we do. So, for example, in Cicatriz, there are songs that combine a boi beat, which is a boi is a type of Brazilian music, like popular music, but it combines it with a certain Gnawa or Mali sensibility in terms of like the way Douglas and me myself on my solo things, the way we play melodic instruments. So a lot of adornment, a lot of not a lot of harmonic complexity, but way more like modal music in a way, and the way we approach how we play music. So that song already has like this the sound, this sensibility to how we play the instruments. So in a way, it's it points to a certain direction, which we would further develop on this record.
There is also something that you've already mentioned. The new record, Cicatrices, it's very, very much beat driven. It's less relying on harmonics, on vocal harmonics. Is that also where you see Deafkids going into in the future, like even more beat oriented, more electronica, more programmed stuff, which is the basis, and then you put all of it on top?
Yeah, I think both like me and Douglas, we are not like people from the electronic scene per se. We do dig a lot of stuff from Detroit techno to more experimental stuff, even like Kosmische Musik, like a lot of old precursors to electronic music in a way. So
krautrock.
we do approach it in a more analog way. You know, we do approach it as as instrumentalists, as like analog musicians. So I think that the certain the the elements that composed our music in the past and that still inform it, like D beat, this kind of thing, they were unfolding in Metaprogramação, in configuração do lamento. And nowadays, for example, the single that is out, like Cicatrizes, it's more or less like a D beat with like an 808 like bass drum, and then we play like a lot of like Latin rhythms on top, or I'm just playing freely in certain parts. So that's more or less the idea. The idea of making like furious modal music in a way, like a lot of this the stuff we listen to has this sensibility. So we would like to translate it to a more frenzied approach. So that's more or less it. And this record has a lot of proper songs. Like it's very because what the composition is a very thin layer, you know. What the composition of each song represents, it's a very, I don't know, very simple idea in terms of what we can do with it. But the that's more or less it. Like we really like from, I don't know, Hindustani ragas to Nawa music and many other types of music, on which what the composition represents, it's just like a template that you can just build upon, rather than having like really really structured harmonic movements or melodic movements. It's more, I don't know, it's more intuitive music in a way.
While listening to Cicatrices do Futuro, I found getting like two ways into the record, two ways of understanding it, and both are in a way connected. But let me start in chronological order. When listening to the record and also reading up on it, I had the feeling as if I'm listening to two guys that are really into music from all over the world, a lot of beat-driven and rhythmic music. And I had the feeling as if you are using all those influences from all over the globe, from Cuba, Brazil, Morocco, Mozambique, Mexico, Ghana, and I think I'm only touching the tip of the iceberg here, from all those different places, in order to find what then for you is the internal core of music.
Yeah, I think that's a really apt way to put it. I mean, we really like to see this to look at the core bridges between certain sensibilities, if you will. Like, I think that for example, Afro-Latin music, or even African music as a whole.
But I know what you mean.
Yeah, it's a complicated generalization.
Yeah, it's like saying like all South American music is all the same. Yeah, of course.
Exactly.
Of course, it's not.
But there's a certain approach, a certain sensibility to it that we also see in I don't know, Hindustani music from the north of Africa, Morocco. That it's a more primordial thing, in the sense that there's a way more trance-based, way less rational in terms of like trying to tell you stuff through
vocals,
and through the like a complex visible structure.
Yeah.
Of course, it's way complex. Like it's these are forms of music that in some cases are being built upon for like 4,000 years, from 4,000 years. So, but still, these are types of music that are very reliant upon improvisation. So they will be updated, not necessarily updated, but styles of interpretation will be the norm in certain times. But in 50 years, for example, new schools of whether uh, whether it's inspired on older performers or trying to merge contemporary styles into it, like it keeps moving, but at the same time, like the ground rules are way more gamified in a way. Like they're not things you should follow to the letter, but they are more or less the rules to a game. So you still have room to interpret them.
Yeah.
Like they are something that like you have a dialectic relationship with. Like it informs what you do, and then you push it back, and so on and so forth. So I think that's the type of music that we feel connected to.
Yeah. Interesting, Van. And here comes my second approach into the record. Most of the stuff that I heard, most of the stuff that I've read upon was music from the global south. And music from the global south, in a way, used as a means to find elements in order to get rid of a certain colonial past, as if we had to or as if you had to overcome certain remnants of that colonial past in order to create music of the future. Is there something like that? Like, okay, we have that, and we have to get rid of all the colonizers' stuff in order to make our music?
Mm-hmm. It's a double-edged sword in a way, like especially for a country such as Brazil, for example. If we think about I don't know, Hindustani music, it's those are forms of music that have been systematized for a long time, and of course it's informed by the social context and by the political landscape shifting, of course. But for example, Brazil has a really specific history, and a lot of like the global South, for example, Latin America has a specific history in terms of like its foundation, its notion of self comes from colonization. So samba, many Brazilian genres, carimbó, siriá, they come informed from they are informed by the instrumentation that you use, and a lot of those instruments come from, for example, the way we use guitars, the way we use stringed instruments in general comes a lot from Portugal. But at the same time, Portugal has this Moor background, has this
Arabic background,
relationship with the former Ottoman Empire.
Mm-hmm.
So it in order to denounce it and to refuse it, we have to engage with it, because it's more or less our fractured identity in a way. So it's more of a thing of like self-curating, like the way colonization affects us, in order even to be able to take a step backwards and see it from the outside. Even I don't know if that's possible, but it's like more of a an idyllic goal of the way we create music, like to be able to see these structures and take advantage of this viewpoint that we have when it comes to this types of music. So being able to either see and respect the background and the heritage that these types of music have, and at the same time have a certain irreverence or a certain daring nature to channel those types of music, or know them to a certain technical level that enables us to challenge the tradition, be able to recombine and juxtapose stuff that are not generally juxtaposed, so be able to dare, basically.
And also, of course, not to copy, right? It's paying respect to it, knowing where it comes from, knowing what it means, but not copying, because copying, in a way, I don't know if you see it the same way, but copying would be a step back.
Of course. And I think that it has to do with many things. For example, the idea of recorded music. So, for example, with the capability of recording music, we have like registers of 1910s Delta blues or stuff like that. So, in a way, there are people trying to reproduce that sound to this day, which is something that would not exist if we didn't have like the proper register. We would have like sheet music and historiographic like registers, of course, but at the same time, we wouldn't try to emulate something if that didn't exist. But at the same time, for example, if we think about the rare grooves craze that we had in the 2010s, and people trying to discover all this 70s, 60s music from a lot of countries that were incorporating like American funk with local music. And at the same time that this is very cool from a historiographic standpoint, at the same time, a lot of, for example, a band could be an Afrobeat band that like it's like its own algorithm, its own AI, in the sense that you're trying to compose through the lens of someone that you don't have either the technical knowledge of it or the punk spirit to like make it yours. Like, not challenging the past, but like using it as like comprehending it as a form of creating music that we incorporate in order to create new music. So, like being able to see that the new is a combination of like what always existed and what has been like a historic process, and at the same time, it depends. It needs someone to like to touch it and disturb it in a way.
Yeah, it's the way as if we are listening to, of course, the pioneers of music, and at the same time saying, okay, they pioneered this. We take A, B, C from their music, put it through our blenders, and pioneer something totally new. I guess you would answer the following question in a positive way. A lot of people say like, okay, there can be no new music. Everything has been done. I myself would disagree with that. Would you also disagree?
Yeah, I would disagree in the on the grounds that I generally don't subscribe to what people see the front to where the people see the frontier between what's new and what's not, because there's this idea. I think it's a very neoliberal idea, like a very capitalistic idea of new as like this um like this mania of breakthroughs, like this this frenzy in searching for major breakthroughs, rather than realizing that, for example, Afro-Latin music and African music with its claves, or Hindustani and Carnatic music with tala and raga, like a lot of the main core of it are ideas that are solidified uh, from immemorial times, but at the same time they serve as a basis for improvisation. So they are resources rather than like round rules. They are stuff that we use to inform what we do and to renew what we're doing. So, and they're not a part of the past, because there is a certain charm, I think. For example, the idea of like tribal beats or stuff like that. I don't really like the tribal thing, because it's like, could people name the tribes that people are doing? Like, it's way more of a like primordial thing. Like, not primitive, but primordial. Like, it still keeps being updated. It's still alive in the heritage of many types of music. So it's always being updated, but at the same time not as not in a software sense. Like, it's not 2.0, so you leave like 1.0 away. It's way more of an open source thing. It's way more of a Linux thing, like.
And then at the same time, you probably would, sorry to interrupt, you would probably also disagree with the notion that the new is always the better, which is totally wrong.
Of course, because then we wouldn't be able to see that, even historically speaking, we have heritages that, because of many social political aspects, devolved, in terms of like got more restrictive, or got more that grew more in conservatism, for example. So I think that we need to stop seeing this kind of thing in such a binary, or where we approach the difference between old and new. It's way more of an open source thing. Like, we have the open code, and people will develop based on that code. So the code is still open. You can still access it and update it or change the UI or whatever. So I think it's way more of a collective approach. So that's why you need people doing stuff in order to realize what you think people need, rather than what you think people want. If you're trying to please people, it will become more of the same. But at the same time, if it's only your research, it's a ego-based affair, so it doesn't communicate. So you still need to consider people, but at the same time, you still need to consider self-expression. So it's way more of giving people what you think they need, what you think the current world needs, rather than trying to please or trying to like counter argument,
And then at the same time, something that we have not really touched upon is, and that is something that of course everybody should notice when listening to Deafkids, it was always very danceable music. But with this one, it is even, yeah, let's say it like that one. It's less of a mosh pit and more of a Charleston. It's very frenzied. Is that something that is important? Make people dance?
Yeah, for sure. I think we always did like rhythmic music, but at the same time, I think that uh, there are certain conventions. For example, the way we always did music, like for example, D beat. D beat is a groove, but still, I think that there is like this heritage of how you dance it and how you approach its danceability in a way.
Yeah.
And I think that by combining the electronic aspect, like 808 beats or whatever, and at the same time playing percussion, having all those elements come together, I think it gets easier for people to see that there's no certain way of approaching it, rather it's more of a thing that like it's bodily music. It's meant to touch you, like your mind through your body, rather than like being a more contemplative affair, more mind and then body. It's more like the two are the same thing in this existence that we are now. Like both are the same thing and are connected. So I think that that's a thing I would really love to see, because that happens, for example, with Deafkids. That happens when Deafkids plays with Test as well. We know that we are doing something that is fairly different. So a lot of people sometimes they get like impacted by it, so they observe it more, because I think a lot of people, they don't want to like dance wrong, if they can't predict music, like they, oh, it will stop, so I will be like dancing when the song stops or something like that. And that's not what we want. That's we would much rather, we would prefer that people like just gave themselves into it, and I think that this is natural development.
And then, of course, if that is one of the aims of Deafkids, and now you're a duo, how will you make people move during a live set with all those different things that are going on? How much of the live setup will be programmed and how much will be done on the spot?
Most of we already play like that since I'd say 2024 itself, like the year that Marcelo left the band. We already begun playing like that, because as I said, like we had a lot of songs that were, not a lot, but we had some songs that already used this template. So we have the samples on hand, and we generally have, for example, whether it's songs from the album itself that, for example, Cicatriz is mostly an electronic beat.
Yeah.
So the live things there are like a hi-hat and the congas, and Douglas plays the guitar. So we would have like chunks of the song programmed, and we play on top of those. So and there are many different ways of doing it. For example, with Deafkids and Test, we have songs that have beats, like electronic beats, and we use an SPD, so we can change from A to B through that. So we are more free in terms of how long A lasts, and then we go to B or whatever. And there are also songs on which we can have like the song itself with its parts to play on top, because we have a really distinctive way of signaling each other when to change something. Like we have ways of, like, I don't know, doing like a fill or something like that, that we begin counting from that, and then we change something. So we that's the crazy thing. We created a way of making it like I don't know. We created a way of making it more live, you know, than just like playing like layers on top of something.
I have one last question before we come to the last part, the infamous quickfire round at the end. And that question is, you have been a champion of Brazilian bands for a long time. You've, of course, in Pet Brick, you don't have to champion Igor Cavalera because everybody knows him, but you know, Ratka and Test, and you also worked with some other artists. Was that an important thing for you as a trio and now as a duo, also to give something back to the Brazilian scene? Because I have to be honest, outside of maybe 5, 6, 7 bands from Brazil, my knowledge of Brazilian music is somewhat limited, I have to admit. But was that something that you also wanted to do, like champion Brazilian bands?
I think that that's a natural occurrence, in the sense that we had these bands and this scene of sorts that we feel connected to, that push the limits of their own, I don't know, their own slice of music, you know. Hakta, Test, Prism, Meta, for example. There are bands that are trying to, I don't know, channel and update forms of music and expression that come from Brazil, but at the same time, forms that can be done in a very distinctively Brazilian way, but that are not very well accepted as plausible to be considered Brazilian, or semi-Brazilian, for example. So I think that that's a natural occurrence, in the sense that we tour a lot. For example, with Test, we did like 7 what we call No Hope Tour, which is the tour that we do together. We have a festival that by the time of the recording, it's going to be like in 2 days. So, for example, there are like friends like Felinto, which is an electronic musician that works with dub and black electronic music, that me and Douglas played on his records. We do stuff together all the time. I went with him to Europe in 2019. So I think that that's a natural reflection of what we of the way we do things as well, especially because for example, if we think about Deafkids and Test, for example, in different ways, we have all these history with Europe, for example, and the US. We only went once, but Test went for some tours there. But at the same time, in Brazil, it's kind of hard to be seen as art itself, as like vanguard music. It's way more of a we are some steps behind, in the sense of like even institutionally here, to see something that has like an amplifier on more than 2, like, you know, it becomes, it jumps the fence. It becomes like, oh, extreme music or rock, whatever. Not even like qualified like extreme music. It's it's very very restrictive. For it's hard for people to see it as music that is art, and it's pushing boundaries, and at the same time it expresses a certain Brazilian way of doing things. So I think that this is a way of preserving this effort that we have, like to champion a certain approach to what we do.
Makes sense. So, Marian, first of all, thanks for all the insight into how you create music, how the new lineup, of course, also influenced the songwriting and everything else. But nobody leaves a Veil of Sound interview without having to go for the infamous quickfire round at the end. You will always get two alternatives and have to choose. And I mean, like, let's get the elephant out of the way. You recorded stuff with Pet Brick, a band or project that has maybe one of the most influential drummers of all time. So I'll give you two Sepultura records, Chaos AD versus Roots.
Chaos AD. I think I am more inclined to the like trash death Sepultura rather than the even though it's way more necessary and influential for the music that came. I think that I feel more connected to Chaos AD.
Okay. We've been talking about anarchy and also about like certain capitalistic or critique of capitalism. And I think there has been only few bands that have done that better than Crass. So I'll give you two Crass records, Penis Envy versus Stations of the Crass.
I think Penis Envy. I think it's a more groundbreaking thing.
Yeah, although I think it's not the first one, right? I think it's
but I think it's more like established, like more self-curated album,
I don't know why I came up with the next couple, but I listened to it. I listened to your record and I was like, okay, that would be a good one. Sightless Pit versus Lana Del Reyes. Which band or project would you rather listen to after this interview?
Which was the first one? Sorry?
Sightless Pit versus Lana Del Reyes.
I would have to say I'm not very familiar with it.
Okay.
It would be that I will.
If you don't know either, then don't judge. Or if you don't know them well enough, let's put it.
Yeah, I don't know them well enough.
I'm not sure how familiar you are with African American hardcore, but at the moment there are two bands that are very, very good at what they do. Soul Glow versus Zulu.
I think I'm more connected to Soul Glow. Yeah, I think it's more. I'm not a very, and I'm not saying they are just that, but I'm not a very beat down person. I'm more like hardcore-ish type of dude in terms of hardcore. Like way more like fast songs or more juvenile approach to hardcore.
You've mentioned kosmische Musik, and of course, you know, that is something that comes from Germany, and I'll give you Klaus Schulze solo versus Klaus Schulze with Tangerine Dream.
That's a hard one. I think I would choose him with Tangerine Dream, specifically because especially the beginning is so, I don't know, so fundamental to what electronic music would become. And I think that it's more of a reflection of a certain period of music that really interests me. Like, I think that from, I don't know, 68 to 75 was perhaps one of my favorite times of music in the world. So I think that I would choose Tangerine Dream.
You've also, at one point, dropped the word techno. So I'll give you not one, not two, not three, 4 different cities to choose from. Which of those cities do you think is more influential on you as a musician? Berlin, Detroit, Frankfurt, New York, when it comes to techno.
Detroit for sure, because there is even the ethnic aspect. Like there is the thing about creating, even if you will, a certain sense of punkness. You know, like the sense of community, underground resistance. Jeff Mills, you know, there's this. They were pushing boundaries, but at the same time, there was this sense of community, and underground resistance had the scenic aspect, like with the like in stage personnel, for example. There's this idea of doing something that is like badass from a third world perspective, even though it's an American initiative.
Yeah, but of course, that third world aspect that you mentioned, that is, of course, something, if any major American city could purvey that, could give that, then it would be Detroit, because let's be honest, Detroit in the 80s and the 90s was, and to a certain degree still is, a wasteland.
Yeah, and the idea of even, I don't know, even going back to MC5 and stuff like that, you see that there's this, it's a way more, at the same time, furious but shaded perspective on what capitalism can do to a city, for example, in terms of like, oh, we will just like remove jobs from here and it will change the landscape of everyone's lives, you know, the landscape of the city, the perspectives on everyone. And I think that how culturally diverse it is, diverse, and at the same time it's very close to Canada, which I think brings a certain way, a perspective of seeing things that differ from the regular like North American, like from the US perspective, you know.
Yeah. I have 3 more. The Mars Volta versus At the Drive-In.
For sure, Mars Volta. Funnily enough, I think even because of the way I dress and the way like we are Latin people doing Latin music,
because every Latin music is the same. I know, yes.
No, of course. I mean, I mean, a lot of people tend to see us as huge Mars Volta fans, or that it informs our music. I think Douglas likes Mars Volta a lot, but it doesn't inform what we do from a long time. But I think that I feel more connected to. I'm not very into like the proggier aspects of it, like the ghost notey thing. Like, but I really like the, for example, the salsa interludes, the idea of exposing one's heritage in that sense. And at the driving, I think it's a more it's still a very groundbreaking band, but it was more connected to that post Fugazi scene, you know, that it's not something that I connect that much musically to, like the post hardcore-ish scene from the like end of the 80s, 90s, Discord music, which is, it's very cool as a scene, but it's not something that I connect that much to.
My idea behind that comparison was that you have a core of 2 people. That was my idea.
Yeah, of course.
And when listening to the record, there was one line from a very, very famous song that always came to my mind. When I listened to Cicatriz to Futuro, I always had that line in my head, and it was groove sucker, move sucker. So I'll give you the two alternatives, or not two alternatives, but two versions of Renegades of Funk. The original by Africa Bambaataa and the Soul Sonic Horse, or the pretty good cover version by Rage Against the Machine. Which one do you prefer?
I think I really like the Rage Against the Machine version, but I will stick to the original because there's I think that Rage Against the Machine has this thing that when we talked about roots, I feel that connected. I think that groove music, like heavy groovy music, from the 90s, I don't feel that connected to, because it comes from a moment in history where it is after metal existed. So I think that in a sense, and I say that as a band that is as part of a band that it's not a metal band, but has like it reaches it has its connecting points to metal, but I think that it, in a sense, metal and groove kind of almost cancel each other, in the sense that metal has this stiffness that comes from like it's part of its main persona, you know, whether it's from power metal to groove metal, it has this stiffness. And I think that even a kind of like a masculine energy, or non or even white energy in a sense, and I think that Renegades of Funk comes from a time where the template of music, even of rock, was black music. So it's way more groovy in the sense that it's a frenzied smile, like it's the body smiling, even if it's invective, even if it's like to fuck your mind up, it's still in a for example, you mentioned a phrase from a line from the song, and I think that line from the first Funkadelic album, if you can suck my soul, I will lick your funky emotions. That's like the idea that we try to enforce, even though we create music in a very, I don't know, invective way, like frenzied way. It's still like the same idea, you know.
And if I am talking with somebody from Rio de Janeiro or close to, I of course have to ask: Fluminense versus Flamengo.
I am from the countryside of São Paulo. Douglas is from the countryside of Rio, because he was originally the band.
So then for you it would be Corinthians versus FC São Paulo.
São Paulo, I'm São Paulino. And he is Flamengo, so I have to choose Flamengo. And
for São Paulo?
And São Paulo. I am FC São Paulo. And he I think Flamengo, it has this penchant for, I don't know, the people. You know, it has this thing that it's the people's team, such as Corinthians has in São Paulo, but I will never say Corinthians because I'm a São Paulo supporter. But Flamengo to represent my fellow bandmates.
So for everybody out there, we're talking about football, or for the Americans, we're talking about soccer. And especially on this recording day, one day after Italy has thrown out or has been kicked out of a World Cup by the Bosnians. That's a good one.
Yeah. I think we love to see a World Cup full of dark horses. You know, that's the
very sure thing. Very sure. So, Marian, first of all, thanks for all the details. Thanks for your insight, and most of all, thanks for the amazing new record, Cicatriz do Futuro. Everybody, when you see this shortly after, or maybe even on the publishing day of this interview, May 29th, I think it is. So the last Friday in May, this fine gentleman will release the new record via Neurot Recordings. Check it out and dance to it, please. Marian, your chance for final last word.
That's exactly it. I mean, if you guys dig it, dance to it, listen to the singles. I think that when then when this gets published, another single will be out already. So listen to the singles, listen to the album when it comes out, dance to it, and we see ourselves in ballrooms, in dance clubs, in the pit or whatever. But just let's connect to each other through dance, through resistance, because more than ever, we need to feel non-virtual emotions.
Marian, thanks for your time.
Cheers.